Good morning, everyone. This is Erica Swenson Elliott, and it is Friday, April 9th, 2021. Yesterday we focused on creativity, and today we're going to move forward with using creativity and really delve into the fact that you are the expert. I am the expert. You are the expert. We all are experts in something or many things, and often we don't even recognize it. For the one thing you're an expert in is your life. No one else has lived your life. No one else has had the experiences that you had, only you. And if you believe in past lives, you're the only one that's combined all of your past lives with this life. So there you are the expert. But how do you connect with that? And how do you resonate with your true self? There's a lot of distractions, a lot of information coming at us these days. So I am talking today about how my life, we're going to use as a template, and how I figured out how to be more true to myself and be able to share my expertise with others. So one of the things that we're all journeying on right now is this massive change in how we share information, and it's been going on for a long time. So I'm going to read today to you, for part of this exercise, a chapter from Love and Taxes, my first book, A True Story, which is, as if you've been following along in the previous episodes, it's my life and how I met my husband Keith is like the love, fun interest aspect of the book, but it's also sharing knowledge and helping other people along the journey in life. So I'm going to read to you from page 37 today in Love and Taxes, and the chapter is called Send in the Expert. Celebrate your own efforts in technical expertise. This is pretty hard for us to do. We're very down on ourselves often and critical of each other, of our own expertise. So I think often and I'm quoting someone else here, but often when we hear harder, difficult truths in a story format, it resonates with us and we can understand the complexities of it and apply it to ourselves versus from a lecture style. All right, send in the expert. After finishing my first tax season, I was grateful that I was still employed. This is me talking. When I got my envelope of handwritten evaluations from handwritten, mind you, from the 10 or so reviewers and managers that I prepared tax returns for, my hands were shaking. I literally ran into a bathroom stall so I could read them in total privacy in case I broke out into tears. Somewhat shocked, I found that I had many perfect scores and generous comments giving me A's for effort. At least, right? A for effort. In relief, I started crying anyway, because at least I was not going to get fired straight out of the gate. After April 15th was over, I was asked, which was the deadline for many, many years, and second year of COVID, here we are in 2021. For this, only the second time in history, we've now moved the date back again, May 17th, for individuals. After April 15th was over, I was asked to study up on the firm's proprietary fixed asset software to track depreciation for companies. I say proprietary because my firm had to write all of its own software. There was no TurboTax or other software equivalents. There was no cloud or even internet. Desktop personal computers were fairly new things, and the laptop had not yet been invented. This is 1989. Our software development headquarters was in Sarasota, Florida. A bunch of computer programmers built our firm's suite of custom tax software on site. Floppy 5¼ inch discs and then hard 3½ inch discs were programmed with the software and shipped to our own offices or to our clients upon purchase for installation, one desktop computer at a time. Imagine that. No download, access to the cloud, none of that. One beautiful May morning, Mary called me down to her manager's office. I liked working for her. She took time to explain each return's issues before I started it, an efficient way to work. Mary's eyes were dancing with excitement as she said, "We sold an important project to one of our corporate clients. They bought our fixed asset software and they need help implementing it." For those of you that aren't familiar with what that means is you can, for business purposes, depreciate physical assets like a car, a house, a building, a computer, and then you have to track it. And there's all kinds of variations on that and tax law changes. So this software would help you track it for book purposes, for tax return purposes, alternative tax purposes. You get the drift. Mary continued, "You'll have to go out to the client's site and it could take a couple months of an engagement. First, you will have to install the software and then upload their inventory of fixed assets into the software to calculate depreciation for book, regular tax, and AMT tax." We told them we were sending in the expert, so it will be a smooth transition. "Do you think you can drive out next week?" I could not help blurting out, "What?" My light Philly accent probably reared its head and it sounded more like, "What?" But I'm not an expert. I just started learning this stuff. Still with a big smile, Mary reminded me, "You did just great during 1040 season. You have all that computer training. Remember, you know more than everyone else surrounding you when it comes to this new software. So you are the expert and you have unlimited direct phone support, a hotline right to Sarasota." I was glad for the vote of confidence, but I could picture the myriad of bumps in the road that could happen while trying to upload 20,000 individual assets, sitting alone in a client's conference room. I pictured this big red bat phone perpetually on speaker box as I read off endless error messages from the black background computer screen. This was before Windows turned all screens white. At least I got to save a little bit on not paying Philly wage tax while I worked outside the city, a small comfort. That was my first on-site client assignment. Immediately, I loved every minute of it. Even the technical problems were invigorating when I found resolutions on my own. Of course, over the course of my client visitation, different employees would wander into my conference corner to talk. The client supervisor surreptitiously offered me a job, clearly not wanting my employer to know he was attempting to poach. Briefly, I imagined doing the same thing at the same place all day long, and I knew that that life was not for me. I loved this jumping around to different locations and projects. I needed the exhilaration of variety and deadlines. Sometimes it even felt like a confessional. One woman with tears welling in her eyes shared this horrific story of her rape by an unknown man as he had bagged her head in her own driveway after work. As she bent down to get her briefcase out of the back seat, he attacked her from behind. This broke my heart. To this day, I never get in my car without glancing under the car and in the back seat. The day I was told the rape story, my skin pricked all over me. I knew this was not normal behavior from clients. My peers did not go out to clients and get job offers and victim confessions on a daily basis. Besides my hardcore work ethic, I began to see that my connection through relationships was my differentiating strength among my tax peers. Many of them were the traditional code heads, internal revenue code heads, whom had difficulty stringing together a conversation with other humans. They could repeat verbatim paragraphs lifted directly from the Internal Revenue Code, but not succeed in a two-way conversation. Pretty soon, partners and managers were sending me all over southeastern Pennsylvania to install tax software. Clients asked for me, and I loved it. Daily, I embraced the ever-changing kaleidoscope of people who felt safe to share the stories of their lives with me while we solved their business problems together. And the end quote I have at that chapter is, "Recognize what makes you special." And that's true about each of us. And it kind of wasn't until I wrote this book, 30 years after the fact, that I started understanding what made me special and what I needed to put together and share with others, because life is changing so fast, and the corporate world that I worked in coming out of college in 1989 doesn't exist anymore. Everything's totally different. And having personal storytelling and mentoring from the people that went ahead of you, I think is hugely important. And it's when I wrote these stories, it was about Keith's stories as well, because there's one of the things about marrying a CEO is they have so many experiences and were often out there on their own getting shot, figuratively shot by everyone, from the employees below them aren't always happy with their decisions, with the stock market, financial services industry isn't always happy with their decisions, their competitors, their customers. It can be a very cold and scary place, especially if you're running a big publicly traded company. So one of the things I was going to break this up, but I think it's more naturally flowing together. I'm going to flip to how to create value. So you have expertise and you can use it or you can ignore it. So for those of you that have read or remember Sunday school Bible stories about the man with the hidden talents, and it's still very true to this day. So there was 3 men, and the boss, the CEO, gave them each tools or money to go invest and make more money for him to run, the farm or whatever the property. So the first guy got 5 talents, which I think was like 5 coins. The next guy got 2, and then the third guy got 1. So the guy with 5 coins went out and like invested in cattle and ended up like doubling it and had 10 coins when the master returned. And then the second guy when the master returned or the boss returned, he had doubled his 2 to 4. And then the last guy took his 1 coin and buried it in the basement. And he didn't want to lose it, so he was going to take care of it for his boss until he got back. Well, that guy got fired because all it did was sit and rust and didn't make any profit, didn't help anyone. And if you take the word talent and you also talk about it as like your abilities, your talents, not money, then that's also true. What are you doing with your talents? Are you burying it in the basement, or are you investing it in others and around the world, with other people, or are you just keeping it all to yourself? So and when you create value, I'm going to show you these little points here. When you create value, you are not just improving yourself, you're improving the consciousness of all humanity, and you're contributing and you're being a steward of what has been given to you. So this is an outline, and this is about how to create value. And I'm going to read this story, this aspect of the story, when Keith and I are sitting there talking on page 77. And this list, it looks pretty simple, right? But trying to still, if you think about all the different ways to make money or profit or value, and you think about intrinsic value, not just monetary value now, this can apply to the talents in your life as well. This is like an interdimensional list about how to create value. Keith charged forward. In that first annual report, I spelled out the 4 ways to create value for a company. I will challenge any business school professor to name a 5th way. I spent a lot of time, Keith has a Southern accent, developing a plain English framework to explain these concepts. Anything you can do as an executive or business owner to improve your company will fit into one of these 4 categories. And with that, Keith quickly ticked off these 4 principles. Make better what you already have. Get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. Get more of the good stuff. Lower the cost of capital. How refreshingly simple, but broadly applicable. Where had this man been my whole career? How much time had I wasted on stuff that should have been in the get rid of pile? Wow. And upon my request, Keith promised to send me a copy of that old annual report, which I still have behind me here, so I could spend more time digesting these broader concepts before our first meeting. I was a much better student of the written page than oral lectures. If it was not in a story format, it was difficult for me to embrace abstract concepts such as these from an oral form. I was still trying to grasp the broadness of these principles. So I had to ask, well, how does taxation fit into those four categories? Because tax is such a narrow field. And without a second's thought, Keith replied, well, taxation could fit in a few ways, but definitely number 4, lower the cost of capital. When you reduce taxes to what is required to be paid, you increase net income, which increases owner's equity, which improves your debt to equity ratio. When you improve this ratio, you can borrow more, which will lower the cost of capital. Debt is cheaper than equity, and for one thing, because you can deduct the interest. Also, you maintain more control of your company because you are not offering more shares to the public, as long as you don't borrow too much. So definitely number 4, lower the cost of capital. I could tell he was smiling through his voice on the phone, which gave me laughing a reply. Wow, I suddenly feel so much more important in what I do than just pushing some papers around. And with that, we both laughed, confirmed our future date before we hung up. I drove home from work late that night after wrestling with my expense report into its virtual home, and a small smile came to my face as I recalled and looked forward to the receipt of my first plain English annual report of shareholder value. I wanted time to digest it before I met this voice. It was another piece in the Artful Elliott puzzle that my curious mind wanted to solve. When explaining delivered value, simple English is best. So this, when you think about your life, what in your life is adding value and what in your life is decreasing value? What do you need to get rid of? And the interesting thing to me about the year of living in COVID in 2020 was that we all had a lot of time where we weren't running around busy going to stores, and many of our minds got more activated, turned on, and we've thought about things in a different way and doing things in a different way. And we've already gotten rid of a lot of stuff that doesn't really work for us anymore. Things we can't go back to the way it was before, because we are changed. Not just the world changed, we are now changed. So some of the skills I want to talk about today that I've spent some time incorporating, and I like to do the little technology talk, the tech talk piece. So we've been talking about the Thinkific platform as a way for you, an expert, to create and deliver your own expertise and putting it out there into bundled formats. So one of the things that once you can keep connecting the dots more and more. So in the beginning, it feels very frustrating, speaking from my own experience, that you're trying to create these different things and doesn't necessarily feel like they're connected. But be patient with yourself, because you're creating something new, and find a team of people that you make each other better. And maybe it's 2 different content creators, and then you're kind of helping each other, by iron sharpens iron. One of the things you can do with the Thinkific is you can plug it in as an app into your Shopify store. So Thinkific is my content creator platform for courses. And then I can also put it into the digital store Shopify and you could buy it from there. And then I can also plug in the link to my website, and there's multiple ways to get to the same place. So if I put this particular, course this particular video is gonna go out onto the streaming platforms, Vimeo, YouTube, etc. And that's great, but it's just this one-off little video. However, if I can bring them together, and you can see I'm building this digital warrior course here, which will be all of the episodes from April 2021. And I might even have to break them up into more, because this is number 9 now. And then people can digest and work through how would I apply to my life what Erica has done in her business. So that's one thing you can get out of that. And then this would belong to you. And then you'd have like the videos to go back on, and the place to keep notes, and more detail. I'm also probably going to start breaking them out. So the conversational piece will be a little bit more like a tax silo. You could kind of get those pieces if you're setting up a digital or improving your tax preparation firm, or if you're a content creator of a different kind of content, we'll have more like a technology silo that you can look at those as well. So Shopify connects to Thinkific. So keep thinking about those different ways to connect what feels natural to you. And then I'm going to come back over to the shop, and this is the Shopify store. We talked a little bit yesterday about the Pink Octopus yogurt bottle. So this one came my sample, and it actually has like a little bit of a dimension on there, like it's raised up a little bit. So it's a little small. It has that narrower open that some people like, but I have a big mouth, so I kind of like I like the Digital Warrior one a little bit better. This one has a little bit bigger, you can see. So, okay. I want to talk a little bit about travel the world. So the world's changing. We keep talking about this, right? So I took these, when Keith and I were in different ports, and I'm a global laptop warrior, so it didn't really matter where I was. I could do my digital business wherever I was sitting. This one was when we were in St. Bart's in the Caribbean. Antigua's on the back of this one. And I'm talking about this I like to do that elegant turf, with the cool real estate and unusual things. Yesterday we talked about Airbnb as a business model. As a spin-off of that, I'm going to talk about elegant surf today, because that is cruise ships and boating. Another way to have a rental income business is with like an Airbnb model on a boat. So especially down here in South Florida, you can see more and more of this happening. And this might be an endeavor, if you are a boater, that you would do with a group of friends potentially, or you could be a minority investor in someone that's already doing it, that you could participate, that they already have the model working. So that rental income, you get to depreciate the boat, which has we talked about fixed assets depreciation earlier today in the story time. That is a pretty accelerated model, and you get a really nice upfront deduction in the first 5 years of your boat depreciation if you're using it for business purposes, which would be holding it out for rent, and you would work with an agent, like an agency that specializes in that kind of thing. The other cost, there's a lot of cost with people on the boat, so that's an issue. So, but it's a way, if you are wanting to, as you retire, maybe sell your house, be a little bit more free yourself, you could end up living on the boat personally for a part of the year, and then you could then run it as a business and for the rest of the year. And when you rent it out like that, you end up at least paying for the carrying costs of the boat for the year often, if you do the numbers right. And then it's basically paying for your vacation. So you could think about it like that. And then it gives you a little bit more flexibility about going to seeing things, and you're not tied down with a piece of property. People are thinking very differently about how we live based on what happened last year. So if you imagine there's another, COVID-28, and we're all locked down again. Well, if you're on your own boat, you're not so locked down, are you? So you're also safer because you're out at sea. There's a cool thing you could do with a boat. So, and this is yachting, right? So we talked about land yachts in episode 1, which was the fancy RVs. So that's another way to be up and away from others and more in control of your own life, and making it a business model that helps pay for itself, because you could rent those things out too through Goss RV. We'll come back and touch on them again too. So you can see how when we think more creatively and we use our own expertise, we can end up changing how we live our life, and we can get to the place where we are more authentically ourselves, whatever that is. We're all very different people. So, okay, so I think I covered everything I wanted to about being an expert. And I like to normally end on a mudra. And this one, I'm going to do the one, I am a beacon of light. This is a new one to me that Sabrina has in her latest book that she published, Sabrina Mesko, Mudras and Crystals. She's my mudra teacher. And if you guys have done this, like making the shadow, right? So this one is for illuminating your heart. And the only thing that's different here is, so you see how you have like your fingers like that? So this one, your right pinky is the one that should be separate like that. So you want your right hand over top of your left, your thumbs connected, kind of making the bird things, and then drop your right pinky. And that might be hard to do. You're going to bring that down to your heart, okay? And you're going to do this for 3 minutes. The interesting thing about the pinky being dropped is that's a medical clue. Like that, your pinky is a factor that doctors look at for if you have heart bypass issues. If your trigger finger, they call it, all of a sudden stops working, that's often tied to a blockage in your heart. So this mudra is activating the energy for your heart. So there's a physical and a spiritual and an emotional level to this thing. So this is a mudra for illuminating your heart. We would hold it for 3 minutes. And if you could do the affirmation that I am a beacon of light. I am a beacon of light. When you do a mudra, you sit with your spine straight, your neck long, your shoulders down, chin level to the floor, nice and relaxed, and breathe slowly through your nose with an inhale, exhale. And that is the way you can bring your light more authentically into the world. Namaste for today. Talk to you next time.